Here's a monster that always feels like a fish out of water. Here's your spooky spot on the NECA Toys Universal Monsters, the creature from the Black Lagoon. The debut of Universal's 1954 film, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, took audiences deep into the Amazon. This 7-inch scale ultimate action figure depicts the mysterious and terrifying creature in extraordinary detail. It comes with 3 extra pairs of hands and 3 interchangeable head sculpts, display-friendly window box packaging with open front flap. Oh man, I really hope I stocked enough fish food for this review. Before we get a closer look, though, at the colorized version of The Creature from the Black Lagoon, let me send out a big ghoulish thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide this sample we could have a look at. I'm going to grab now, of course, the tape measure and see how tall Gillman stands. He looks to be about 8 inches in height, if you can see that right, or the figure's going to be about 20 centimeters tall. The folks over at NECA Toys have covered a lot of terrifying territory when it comes to Universal Monster figures. Let's bring them in right now. Here's what the Creature from the Black Lagoon looks like with the Bela Lugosi Dracula. Here's what he looks like also a little more closer in scale with the already looked at Frankenstein's monster. I'm all bringing these in by colorized versions. Here's also what he looks like with the Mummy being slightly shorter, just off to the side as well. We've already had a look at the Wolfman. And just recently, in fact, we had a look at the colorized version of the Bride of Frankenstein. Depending, of course, when you've seen these reviews, I also have looked at the black and white version of the Bride of Frankenstein. But sticking with the same color scheme, at least from a brighter color scheme, here's all the Universal Monsters that we've looked at so far here on this channel. Varying sculpted hands and heads are gifted to Gillman when you first get him out of his box. The figure, first of all, comes included with 4 pairs of interchangeable hands. Yes, you heard that correct. 4 pairs of interchangeable hands. The hands do vary, not by much though. First of all, he has fanned out hands. I would guess probably best described as probably hands they would use for swimming. The detail work on just these hands alone, before we actually even get down to looking at the rest of the details on the other ones, just the coloring of the green of the webbing in between each of the individual fingers, not to mention the more swampier green that they've used and the nail coloring that they've added there as well, really make for rich experiences when you're looking at these hands. Just the amount of detail that they added just to these alone, and that's even before we actually start looking at the figure. The figure also comes included with, again, like slight varying degrees of that. So like while we had looked at already at these hands, while they were kind of more flat to look at, these hands have a little bit more angled inward, of at least of the fingers themselves. And then if you want kind of more cursed hands, or hands where he looks like he's going to be grabbing some woman and running off with her, I guess swimming off with her, he also comes with these mauling hands also as well. By far, for me at least, these are my favorite of the monster hands that come included with the monster, the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Swapping out the hands is fairly easy. First of all, you're just going to have to be careful of these fins on the sides. Just kind of wiggle the hands and remove them. Free them from their forearm prisons. Just go ahead and pop off the one hand. Now, if you're having any tough time to do this, you can also go the route of heating these hands in hot water. I have already changed this hand, but I've yet to actually change this hand here. Probably should have done that earlier, but you're just going to go ahead and just pop them off, remove them from the peg, and then find the hand that you want to use. What was the hand? The hand was right here. Just pop the hand then back into the spot that we left it from. And now you've got yourself like the kind of more grabbing hand. I think of the hands, this is by far my favorite of the pairs of hands. And like I said, the fact that the figure comes included with 4 pairs, which unfortunately one thing it gets omitted with all the various hands we've already had a look at, 1, 2, and another 6 to the side. The thing about it, though, is the fact that the figure doesn't come included with the fossilized creature hand, which I kind of thought that'd be one obvious accessory that the NECA folks would have packed along with the figure, and yet the fossil hand is nowhere to be found. What is, though, to be found is the fact that the figure also comes included with 2 swapped-out heads. Again, they only vary by more so the head. I guess the eyes are a little bit different also from one to the other as well. If you were to say look at the figure as he is stock right now, this is the way that I first freed him from his cardboard prison, you'll notice that his mouth is closed shut. If you, though, prefer to have your mouth a little bit more open, like he's breathing now on land, there's this option also available as well. The sculpting of the heads from a side standpoint look to be about the same. The color use of the additional gold that they've added also not only around the areas of the eyes, but also the gills on the side. Boy, does that ever look like he did in the actual film. Of course, in the film, I think would have been more, I guess would have been black and white, wouldn't it? Or would have been color. Thinking about the 50s, 54. Anyways, though, Drew really liked the look of the head sculpts. If you don't prefer, say, either one of these, then the head sculpt also comes included with the figure, is the one that has the open mouth. You can see that the tongue is now shown at least on the inside where it wasn't the case before. Changing out the heads is actually, this is, I think, probably my favorite of the three. Changing out the heads again, you're just going to pop the head off. What looks very much like a very large, obvious ball joint. I'm surprised they didn't actually use a post. Instead, they went with a really large ball joint. But at least when it comes to changing out the heads, it's not as much pressure as you may think is required to get the head in place. Now, again, if you're having any tough time to do that, similar to what we already talked about with the hands, just heat it up. Few passes. That's all it's really required with a hairdryer. And then, of course, the head now will attach very nicely onto the ball joint. Getting, though, a closer look at the head sculpt, my favorite, again, of the three. I would almost even say, like, really between the two, it would either be this one or it'd be this one. I just prefer my Gillman to have a more open mouth myself. Maybe even this one, it might be the better of the three. But either way, I really like the head sculpt with the mouth more open. The rest of the details done to this figure, again, you've got all this really nice scaling, not only on the front of the figure's body, also running down the sides of the sleeves of the arms as well. All the touches have been added. Each get a little bit of this additional gold that's added on the end of the cuff. So you really see the chance to have the scaling stand out. You get a real experience of it when you see it from the back of the figure's body. I mean, it's also here on the front too as well, but with a different breakup here that they've sculpted for the abdomen section of the creature's body. More of the gold really gets the experience of seeing it from the back. And especially you've got this really long fin that he has running down the middle of his spine. He also has these fins also sticking out from the sides of his forearms as well. All, again, attention to detail on all of these figures have been fantastic. You got a couple of little fins there also sticking out from the back of the figure's legs, not again mentioning the fact that there's already this nice little gold. I love the look of the gold that they've added to the figure's body. And even though he has very, very large feet, they have still at least accommodated little foot pegs on the back of the figure's feet. And not only that, just stop for a second. Probably not don't want to get too close, I think, to a creature's feet like this. But if just to look at this, the amount of work that they sculpted just to the under soles of the feet. I mean, these could easily have just been written off by just being flat and plastic, but they spent just as much time to sculpt the under pads of the feet as they did to sculpt the rest of the figure's body. Okay, for the articulation on Gillman here, the creature from the Black Lagoon, his head rotates all the way around. Now, obviously, he's going to have a little more of a problem because he's got these little fins on the side. You will want to be careful because one thing that will end up happening, as I already started to do this, he has a fin, so I'm just going to bring it all the way back and start it where I started it from. Right here, he's got this fin that sticks out. It's the smaller when you compare it against to the rest of the spine fin that he has here, which, by the way, is all soft plastic. But this section right here, when you are rotating the head, what ends up happening is you end up turning the neck around, and this little bit of the fin actually ends up sticking to the side, or depending even how far over you turn it, ends up even sticking out the front. So it's going to look like a little bit of a growth that he's got on the side of his neck. So you want to make sure to, so of course, when you are rotating the head, even though like the head rotates here, and then it technically rotates at the base of the neck as well, you want to make sure, first of all, that when you're rotating it, you're not turning the back of the neck as well, just because it's going to look a little out of place. Head does look, though, up, and all this time I'm doing it, I keep popping the head back off the ball joint. Head does look up, does look down, and you can rock it back and forth as well. As for the arms, now the way they've actually designed this, similar to the way they've designed the suit, they have allotted for enough clearance space for the actor to be able to move his arms out. And the same could be said as well for the figure. There's enough clearance right here that you can easily bring the arms outward. And of course, you can take those arms and rotate them all the way around. This is all soft plastic. This down here is also slightly soft plastic as well. And this section, which will be eventually the ball joint for the torso to rotate, we'll talk more about in a moment. But also as well, the figure has a double hinge. Now, he's got a hinge in the elbow, but very smart. They hid one right underneath this little section of scale. So he bends the arm right here. I mean, obviously, there's not really as much movement that you can get from this section, but he also has a hinge right here as well. So really between the two, the creature does have the means to have a double hinge in his elbow, one there and one there. So I think that's a really smart way to hide the joint, is right underneath this one scale. The hands do rotate also all the way around. You can hinge them back and forth, but going back though to the top of the figure's body, the upper torso is on a ball joint. But then further from that, lower down on the abdomen area, there's also an abdomen rotation right here. There's a ball joint right there. And this, again, is all soft plastic. I mean, like, it's not as soft here as it is maybe soft here, but there's definitely a soft appliance that they put over top of the body to accommodate the articulation points for the figure. Legs do split out. They're on ratcheted joints. You can split the legs of the creature about that far. I'm sure he's probably not enjoying this the whole time. You take the legs, and of course, you can move them forward and back. This, like the top torso, is again softer plastic to conceal the joints. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh, right here. There's a single hinge only on the lower knee, or only where the knee would be. And then you can also rotate this back and forth as well. The ankles move up and down this way, and you can also rock it back and forth this way as well. All in all, like, it's a great looking figure. There's nothing I really would have necessarily changed to it, and I'm sure, like the cases with all the other creatures all the other Universal monsters we've looked at before, I'm sure we will be getting this guy in a black and white treatment, which I'm definitely looking forward to. Now that I think about it, it's actually The Creature from the Black Lagoon was a black and white film. But yeah, I'm really liking the look of this one. I'm sure I will also like the look of the black and white when we eventually get that one released, but as of right now, I wouldn't have done anything different to The Creature from the Black Lagoon, short of maybe also including the fossilized hand. Seems like, again, a really strangely omitted accessory that I really think should have come included with the figure in the first place. NECA generally isn't in the business of including display stands, at least one that you could actually have the figure more in a swimming pose, but that's certainly something I would consider when it comes to displaying The Creature from the Black Lagoon on my shelf. Maybe I might see if I can use myself an adjustable clear post stand from another figure company and see if I can have the figure displayed more in a swimming pose. With all the hands that he actually came included with, he didn't actually come included with any other feats, and probably a lot of that had to do with the fact that he never really came included with, like, sort of the quote, swimming or flight stand. So because he didn't have that, I guess would also justify why they didn't give him swappable feet where it would look like he's actually swimming. All in all, though, from head to toe, as scaly as the figure may be, boy, he's got a lot of detail packed into him. I can honestly see why this one took a little longer to release, like, say, versus Frankenstein's monster. Why, against maybe like the Wolfman, for example. There's definitely a lot more detail, and there's a lot of interesting articulation points that they packed into The Creature from the Black Lagoon. My favorite being the articulation points in the elbows. They hid it so well underneath one of those scales that for a second you don't realize that he actually has a double hinge in his elbow until you start moving things around. Of the three head sculpts, I just still decided to stick with the one that has the more open mouth. And while giving three options available, I prefer, I think, my creature to have a more open mouth while he's moving around on land. What do you guys think of The Creature from the Black Lagoon? Let me know down below in the comments section. And once again, a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide the sample of the brand new colorized Creature from the Black Lagoon from their ever-growing collection, their ever-growing line of Universal monster figures. If you guys enjoyed this video, want to hit it with a like. If you guys are certainly sticking around for more ghoulish videos, certainly through the month of Spottober, we're not even really into October yet, and we're already churning out the spooky-related seasonal videos, but there's definitely going to be a lot more coming your way. I can tell you one thing, just between you and me and that rather creepy-looking bird with red eyes that's been staring at me. I didn't realize this thing's been staring at me the whole time. I don't like the looks of that. But between me, you, and this rather creepy bird that's eyeing me right now, we will be having a look at also the Phantom of the Opera during the month of Spottober. So certainly if you guys would like to see the review of that, come back on a regular basis. And of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.